I've seen some accounts with a 99% loss, or you'll hear stories like someone lost all of their money in the stock market, or the Netflix documentary on GameStop where the guy was a millionaire and is now bankrupt and lost all of his money. When I hear these stories, I just shake my head because there's a way to prevent all of this. Losing all of your money is probably the biggest fear for why people don't invest in the stock market. But what if I told you there's a way to invest where the gains are infinite but the losses are kept to a minimum? It's called a trailing stop loss. There are many types of stops, which we'll cover in another episode, but the one I like is called a trailing stop loss percentage. Let's say you buy a stock for $10. You put a trailing stop loss of 10%. So if the stock drops 10% or $1, you're out and sold the stock. So your loss is only $1 and you've kept $9 of your money. You've minimized your risk and your losses. But now imagine that stock you bought for $10 goes up to $1,000. You don't want it to drop to $9 before it sells because you want to capture all of that gain. Your trailing stop loss, because it's a percentage, trails the high. So each time the stock reaches a new high, the trail gets reset automatically. And when it drops to 10%, it sells. In this case, the stock went from $10 to $1,000. When it drops 10%, or from $1,000 to $900, you sell the stock. You've made a profit of $890. You've maximized your gains and minimized your loss. The beauty of trailing stop loss is that it's automated. So once you place a buy order, you can set the trail order at the same time. And you don't have to monitor your stocks daily, nor frequently check all day and be worried about a drop in price. And trail orders last 6 months. So you only have to reset your trails twice a year or every 6 months. Also, you can fluctuate your trails. For instance, you can buy 10 shares and put a 10% trail, and buy another 10 shares and put a 15% trail, etc. And for those stocks or ETFs that you want to keep forever, but you still want to have a safety net in place, you can put a 25% trail. You should set the trail that makes you feel comfortable. A normal range for trails is 8 to 25% to give the stock some wiggle room. Setting trails is free, and Schwab, Fidelity, E-Trade, etc. all have this option. My guess on why advisors don't tell you about trails is because when your stocks sell, most people don't get back into the market and may miss out on market gains. So advisors would probably prefer that you just stay in the market in the first place. But even if you wanted to buy and hold the stock forever, I still think you should have a risk plan or a safety net in place and still set a 25% trail. Here's an example of a friend's account. His first stock lost 99%. His second stock lost 96%. His third stock lost 94%. His entire account value lost 86%. Don't let this happen to you. Be sure to put in trailing stop losses so that your maximum loss will be whatever you put as your stop, which could be 10%, 15%, or 25%. You hear those stories all the time about people who made a lot of money in the stock market and then lost it all. Don't be one of those stories. Put in your trailing stop loss and let your profits rise as much as possible while you minimize your losses. Here's an example from another friend's account. When he had me look at his account, we took a look at his profit and loss. You can see that he owns a stock here that has a 95% loss, another stock at 83% loss, and another stock at 50% loss. Going forward, we put a 10 to 15% trail on all of his stocks so that this situation will never happen to him again. Let's look at a real example on Schwab.com. I went to trade and I set my condition as OCO. My first order is to buy SCHB, for instance, 1 share. You could set it at market or you can set it at a limit, and a limit is the price that you want to pay for the stock. I'll just set it at market. So my first order is to buy 1 share at market for $26. This is something that everyone typically does, is they buy the stock. What's critical here is to place your second order, which is I want to sell the exact same stock, 1 share, with a trail stop of 10, 15, 20, whatever is your comfort level, 10%, and good to cancel. So that means that this order will last for 6 months, which is a typical for a stop order. So if we review this order, I want to buy 1 share at $26. Worst case scenario, as soon as I buy it and it drops 10% to $23, then the stock sells. The most I've lost is $3. Let's take a look at the best case scenario, which is I bought the stock for $26. Let's say the stock starts to rise, 30, 40, 50, up to $100. The trail always follows the high. So at $100, if the stock starts to drop to 10%, then I'm out. I've maximized my profit from $26 up to $100, and I've minimized my loss by capping my loss at a 10% from the high. I'm going to show just a few pages from this book, Trade Your Way to Financial Freedom, that talks about the same thing. The book says you must have a way to cut your losses short and let your profits run, which is accomplished through exits. Trailing stop losses are just one form of exits that you can use. In the book, it says people just want to ignore exits. But exits control two important factors: whether or not you'll make a profit and how much profit you'll make. I would add how much realized profits you actually make and put in your pocket versus just paper gains that you see on a computer screen. Let's take a look at the exact same example, but this time in Excel. You buy one share of a stock for $10. You place a trailing stop loss order to sell one share of that same stock at 10%. If the worst case scenario happens as soon as you buy and it drops 10%, then you're out. So 10% of $10 is a $1 loss, and you kept $9 of your money. The most you lost on this trade is 10%, or in this case, $1. But let's take a look at the best case scenario. Let's say that $10 stock rises to 100. If at any point it drops 10% from its high, in this case, let's say at $100, it drops 10%. At $90, the stock is sold. So you've made an $80 profit. That's $100. 10% is $90 minus the price that you paid for the stock, which is $10. Trailing stop losses let your stocks rise as much as possible while also protecting yourself and minimizing the losses. Or in trader speak, let your profits rise and minimize your losses. Most people want to get started in investing, but they don't know how. I put together simple, practical, and step-by-step videos on how to get started. Watch this video series and contact me to kickstart your wealth.